All right, our friend Tom Luginbill, ESPN's National College Football Team, and I have to say this because I think it's super cool. Won a JUCO National Championship as starting QB, and also starting QB for Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech's QB right now could win the Heisman. Haynes King is an absolute dog, dude, and freak. But Tom Luginbill joins us on the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 1059 The Zone. We're driven by Fowler GMC's Sierra trucks and Yukons. I want to let you know that tomorrow they're having a trunk or treat tomorrow night at Fowler GMC. 5 to 7:30. Trunk or treat tomorrow night. Fowler GMC Pearl Brandon. 5 to 7:30. FowlerGMC.com. We welcome in Lugs. Lugs, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good, buddy. How are you?
I think I'm maybe okay. I don't know. I had a really good
tough, brother.
Holy hell. I had a good weekend. I got to see a lot of people. Tito's had like 12 people or more come in from Austin, Texas, and Dallas and New Orleans, and that was a ton of fun in Starkville. And then there was a meltdown in the fourth quarter. I don't know if you saw it, but and I'm being facetious, but the Dogs, 17-0 run, 24-0 run, counting overtime, and they had it. And according to your guys at ESPN, Texas had a 1.4% chance of winning with 11 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in the fourth quarter. So I will ask this question, like I asked our listeners. Tom Luginbill, how do you explain the meltdown in Starkville Saturday night?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, this is a program and a team right now that's in that phase of development of trying to figure out what it takes to win when you have somebody on the ropes, when you're in a position to put it away. And they don't have that in them yet. And I think, the thing that stood out to me that changed everything was the punt return for the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to take all of the air out of the stadium. And it shifted momentum. In the game of football, particularly with young kids, is about emotion and momentum. And once that happened, they couldn't get it back. And, you see a lot of teams go through this, but I think that there's progress being made, Bo. There are things that you look at and you're like, okay, this team is well coached. They've been well prepared. They've been in games. They've exceeded probably the expectation of what people thought they were going to be coming into the season, but they're not in a position where I kind of liken it to Brent Key's first 2 years at Georgia Tech, where they would do this same thing. They'd be really close. They'd be on the precipice, but they couldn't quite figure out how to take that next step. And there's no magic formula for it. But then now you look at a team like Tech this year, all right? They shouldn't have won the Wake Forest game, but they did win the Wake Forest game. Duke did everything they could to lose the game to Georgia Tech, and they succeeded in doing so, right? They found ways to do it. And, it's a little bit like Clark Lee at Vandy when he first got there, and you're trying to build a culture and develop a foundation, and you're close here and you're close there, but you can't get over that hump. And then maybe you're just missing one piece, maybe one piece here, and then you experience success and it lights a fuse. And I just feel like Mississippi State's in that process and that phase of trying to figure that out.
You started at quarterback at Georgia Tech, played a ton of it. So how critical was yesterday all the way through Saturday morning to get back up, get them right? Because you can't you may not win, okay, but right. You can't. And Arkansas defensively is awful. Taylon Green's banged up, but still, if he gets healthy, Petrino and Taylon are going to move it. So you can't lay an egg. How critical is the next 5 days for Jeff Levy getting this team up off the mat, Luke's?
The one thing that I would do is I would go through every nook and cranny of that film, and I would point out whether it's 2 to 3 items, 5 to 6 items, 1 item, and I would point out the positives of how close we are. Guys, there's not that big of a separation between them and us. You got to win in the margins, right? And as you're a developmental program, you've got to point out the things that are so close that you might have done well, but if you just done this and you just done that, because games are about moments and momentum, as I mentioned, and you hear that phrase, most games are lost, not won. And I think you got to be as positive as you can and point out the closeness. Point out, guys, it's here and here, and we're fine. And I think that is something that can help create and sustain the belief and the buy-in. And that if we're just do this and it takes just a little extra here, this and that, we're right there. I don't think you dwell on the negative. I don't think you point out a lot of negative. But you point out how close the gap has become.
Okay. He's learning on the job. This is the direction they decide to go. So I think there's also a lack of discipline. There's been some flags, 15-yard penalties, and there's some attention to detail that still needs to get buttoned up, that in this league, which is unforgiving, needs to be addressed. Okay, so, all right, let's go to Ole Miss. Unbelievable road win for Lane. And it's just so damn difficult to win on the road. And they go to Oklahoma, who was revved up and juiced up. How impressed were you that they were able to get out of Norman with a win, Luke?
I was more impressed with how the team handled themselves, because there are some people that will say, oh, well, this isn't real when it comes to, talk and distractions about coaching changes. And it is real, right? When you're hot, you're trying to make a run and a job or two pops open, and all of the talk isn't about what you're doing to prepare for Oklahoma. All of the talk is, what is Lane Kiffin going to do? And how do you manage that? How do you address that? How do you get the kids to not dwell on it or focus on it? And I think that's what I was most impressed with, is that team went out like the Florida job wasn't open. That team went out like Lane Kiffin was the head coach at Ole Miss and is going to continue to be so. And then the way they do it and go out and close that thing in the fourth quarter, correcting what was really a bugaboo for them a week ago in Athens, I thought it showed an incredible amount of maturity. I thought they showed resilience. It was one of those games where I think they rushed for, Kewan Lacey rushed for 78 yards on 27 carries. Well, that's not a lot on the stat line, but that's mature, patient play calling, because you just keep pounding it in there. And if you avoid negative plays, those 1-yard gains, 3-yard gains, 2-yard gains, they start to add up. And so I thought it was a really nice display of maturity, poise, composure on behalf of that team in a hostile environment. And I really thought the defense came to play.
Yeah.
I thought they affected John Mateer significantly. And he's not right now, Bo, he is missing so many opportunities and open throws. He doesn't even look like the guy that's played in the first 4 weeks of the season. I don't know if it's his thumb. I don't know exactly. I know that they can't run the football effectively, but now he's not even running the football, which he was the only part of their run game early on. Now they did rush. They had a back rush for over 100 yards. First time it happened all year. But aside from that, the problem with Oklahoma is they're not very good in the offensive line. They can't efficiently and consistently run the ball. So Ole Miss finally said, you know what, we're just going to come after this guy.
Right.
We're just going to come after this guy. And it worked.
Yeah, it did. Pete Golding. Something else on Ole Miss offensively. Trinidad went for 53 yards, and his escapability on 4 or 5 plays was insane. And really, Lugs, that's the difference in what's happening in Starkville. You know, Trinidad had 53 yards rushing. Blake Shapen minus 39. And that is, man, when you take you know this better than anybody. You play the position. When you take an 8 or 9 yard loss because you can't get the ball out or you don't have the escapability, It just sets you. How difficult is that to overcome?
What we've seen it all across the league. It's been something Auburn's been battling all year long, right? You don't have success on first or second down, and it could be a variety of reasons. It could be a pre-snap penalty. It could be stopped for no yardage. And now all of a sudden you're off schedule. You become predictable because now you get into obvious passing situations. People don't respect the run. They're gonna either come after you or they're gonna have a light box and play coverage. And you're always playing from behind. And you're right. And when you don't have that significant run element to get you out of trouble, you've heard me say how many thousands of times I've said this on your show. When the quarterback's not a distinct running threat, they're playing with 10 and you're playing with 11.
Yep.
And so you have that advantage. You look at guys like Haynes King, guys like Lenora Sellers, guys like Diego Pavia, even Arch Manning. You see it across college football. These guys that can take what looks like it's going to be a negative and either create a positive or get back to no gain. That is a difference-making component to every offense. And that's why, it's harder to play offensive football without it. It can be done, but I also think you have to be so good everywhere else, because if you're not, then not having that element really exposes you.
Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Recapping the weekend, and we're also going to look towards the weekend and talk a little Brian Kelly. Bama survived. I thought that was huge considering the run they've been on. It could have been it was a tough game, but I was impressed with Ole Miss going on the road. Impressed with Bama going on the road. Vandy holding serve, hosting game day, which is not something that I think it was only the second time. I didn't even know they had hosted in 2008. You may have remembered. Okay, so we're marching through this thing, and we're about to be in November this weekend. Does anybody jump off the page at you as far as, damn, that's the best team in the country?
Well, I think a team that is inching toward that notion is Texas A&M right now.
Okay.
Because they are so explosive and they are so disruptive. My newest pastime, each weekend I look forward to seeing how many third down conversions they allowed. This week it was 2. And they went on a run for 3 straight weeks, and I think they allowed 2 conversions on 3 attempts on a 3-week span. So they're never on a field, and they're never on a short field, right? Then you got this quarterback in Marcel Reed who has completely revamped himself as a passer. We know he's a dynamite runner. Mm-hmm. The explosiveness on the perimeter is crazy. And now the kicking game is playing out of their mind. I mean, that team went into LSU, turned the ball over twice, and LSU did not turn it over, and physically beat the snot out of LSU in every phase of the game. So I think they're a team that you got to start seriously looking at and saying, hey, these guys could play with and beat anybody on the schedule. I still like Ohio State a lot. I like Alabama a lot. I totally agree with you with your assessment of Alabama. That was a hard one, and they figured it out, and they found a way. That is a resilient group. And, I thought the trench play in that game, Alabama had all they could handle. Woo! And did not play well up front and still found a way to win the game. I came away looking at the SEC going, dude, this week in almost every matchup, you look what Auburn did to Arkansas on defense. Like almost every matchup, and you better get a note from your mother to play in the trenches in the SEC right now.
Yeah, no kidding, Tom.
Because those guys, they're beating the snot out of each other.
They really are. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show. All right, Indiana. Are you so? I get Kurt Cignetti's unbelievable, and Fernando, and golly, their attention to detail and discipline is just good gravy. So, this is legit. This is bona fide, right? How about this? If you were in South America for the next 2 months, and I called you and I said they're in the championship game, I know they're ranked number 2, but would you be surprised?
No,
Okay.
no, and I wouldn't be surprised because number one, they're built in all of the right places.
Right.
They are so physical and talented and deep in the offensive line and the defensive line. They can run the ball at will. The quarterback's a top 5 pick. They're more explosive than people think they are. Low penalty team, low turnover team. All of the things that, like the boxes that you want to check, they're there. And, you kind of, had the notion maybe they're going to be a flash in the pan. Now, I knew just because I'd seen him a lot last year because he was in the ACC at Cal, I knew from a quarterback perspective they were going to be upgraded because that guy's special.
Wow.
I mean, he really is. I don't think I realized how good they were going to be up front.
Okay.
On both sides of the ball. And that's what makes them just so unique. And I'll tell you, I'm a firm believer now, dude, that with what Georgia Tech's doing, with what Vandy's done, with what Indiana's done, with all of these coaching changes, these ADs and presidents and these board of trustees are saying, hey, wait a minute. We're in this transfer portal era, and we have this transactional nature of roster turnover. We have more money than all of the teams that I just mentioned. Why are they pulling this off and we're not? And it's putting a ton of pressure on the LSUs of the world, the Florida States of the world, right? Because the Floridas of the world, because they're the teams that are quote unquote supposed to be in today's climate where Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech are right now. So I think it's added a huge microscope on these programs, and it's forced the hand of the administrators to make a change because the standard and the expectation, I mean, you look at Brian Kelly and LSU coming into the year and what they had back and the different components and the excitement that they had, and for them to play the way that they have played, and you're the president there or you're a board of trustees member and you're going, wait a minute, we just lost to Vandy? How does that happen? All right, so it's just those guys have had enough.
All right, let's go to LSU. You could feel it Saturday night. I know the money's big, whatever. I'm not surprised that they made the change. And you just kind of laid out some things too. So I think it's a top 3 job, Lugs, and you can pick this apart, agree, disagree, but I go LSU, Georgia, Ohio State because they're the only game in town. I know Georgia Tech's winning, but you know what I'm talking about the last 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I go LSU, Georgia, Ohio State. There could be some others when they're run the right way. We
got to put Alabama in there.
Okay, fair enough. Alabama Crimson Tide. Where are you with what direction you think they could go?
Well, listen, they've got funding. To your point,
yes,
they're the only Power 4 school in the state, right? The state itself has tremendous athletes in high school football, so you don't have to go into anybody else's backyard. And this is why it's always been such a coveted job. All of this talk about Florida and Lane Kiffin, the Florida job's not a better job than the Ole Miss job is right now. But the LSU job is. Yeah. And I think that's what will make that job so attractive. And, when you make a move like this, because here's what we also got to understand is we're overpopulating and we are saturating the coach's opening pool, if you will, right? Like you look at Auburn right now, and everybody, and not to get off point from LSU, but everybody's saying, well, do we get rid of Hugh Freeze? Do we let this thing? Well, if you let go of Hugh Freeze with all of these jobs open, do you get the guy that you think's a better answer than Hugh Freeze, or do you wait until the next cycle? All right, and I think that's a fair question. So now, if you're LSU, there's going to be not just an expectation that you'll go and hire an elite coach, but he also better win the press conference.
Yeah.
So who's out there right now that you'd say, oh, that guy. If Brian Kelly was deemed to not be a fit, like who's out there at their current job that you'd say, okay, this guy's a fit for LSU? Well, Lane Kiffin, I think, obviously is.
Sure.
I don't think there's any question about that. But I don't think Kalen DeBoer is going anywhere. Kirby Smart's not going anywhere. Ryan Day's not going anywhere. You're trying to figure out what's the better option that not only is better than what Brian Kelly provided, but also wins the initial phase of the honeymoon. It's not easy to find those names out there right now.
No, it's like Lane Kiffin, maybe Drinkwitz, but I don't even think that would get them hot and bothered. Not that he couldn't go down there and win. Brom, they don't even know who that is, but Jeff, you and I do, and University of Louisville, that's his alma mater, but still, you'd have to consider LSU. Maybe an NFL guy. They were talking Joe Brady. Have you heard rumors of Joe Brady to Penn State? Are you buying any of that? Have you heard any of that?
Yeah, I have heard a little bit of that. I don't know, like you said, if that would ring the bell. I'll give you one that I think from an LSU perspective. If you want to restore toughness, blue-collar attitude, combined with the access to elite athletes, you go find Brent Key.
Yep. He'd crush it there.
He'd crush it because he's been at the Alabama side of things as the offensive line coach, where they have that, right? And so because he's having to do it a different way at Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech's a unique place. But what LSU needs is physical and mental toughness, competitive temperament. They can't just be all flash, look good in the uniform, and be athletic. And that's what Brent Key brings.
Brent Key and Kurt Signetti are freaks. My gosh.
Yeah.
They are just unbelievable. All right. I didn't get to this weekend, but we just had too much to recap. So I thought that was great. I hope you're doing well, my friend, and we'll talk next week, okay?
Doing great, buddy. Have a great week.
Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Lunch today brought to you by Burgers, Blues, Barbecue, Dogwood, Flowwood, B3. Beautiful place they've got. They built it out really well. Also, the show is brought to you by Fowler GMC. They're doing a trunk or treat tomorrow night at Fowler GMC from 5 to 7:30. Trunk or treat tomorrow night at Fowler GMC from 5 to 7:30. FowlerGMC.com, FOWLER. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you missed anything, my rants from the first hour or anything else, you can go to YouTube, search Out of Bounds Sports, or you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. Show is also brought to you by Mississippi Smart Homes. Get that Sonos surround sound system for the games, for the movies, for the music. MSSmarthomes.com. We'll see you tomorrow.